think we're live. I'm really hoping everything is going to work today because I've been having internet problems. I've had no internet for the last 3 hours roughly, and it's come back. It went out just as I was preparing to do these streams. So now it's back. I'm quickly going to do them, and I hope everything's going to work out okay. So hi everyone. As I said, if you're new here, my name's Nicki. I'm an author, editor and book reviewer, and I post videos here on YouTube about writing, editing, reading and all the other things I love, which is why we're here today, because it's the end of the month, pretty much, a couple of days to go, and I'm going to be giving you a bit of a rundown of the TV and films I've been watching during January for the last few weeks. So without any further ado, and bearing in mind that I'm not 100% about this internet connection, I'm going to crack straight on. So I've been to the cinema once. Yay! For those who've been watching these streams, you'll know that it's actually been a few months since I last went to the cinema. I usually go quite a lot, but just the way things have worked out, I haven't actually been since July. So I went to the cinema to see the new Star Wars film, Rise of Skywalker. I was both excited and a little bit worried about this movie. I am in the camp who loved film 2. I thought Last Jedi was awesome. I really liked where they took the characters, and I was really concerned with J.J. Abrams coming back on board that everything was going to change. And it pretty much did. I mean, to just give you a heads up straight away before we start, I'm giving this film 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was entertaining, but there were so many problems with it. And in order to talk about the problems, I'm going to have to do spoilers. So if you're someone who doesn't like spoilers, I will do a bit of a signal thing for you so you can mute me, so you don't hear them if you haven't seen the film yet. So basically, when I do this, I'm going to start the spoilers, and when I do it again, I'm going to finish the spoilers, okay? So watch out for my hand signals and push that mute button if you need to. So first of all, things I liked. Yes, it was entertaining. The time went fairly quickly, but that was about it. I was really upset about so many issues with this film. First of all, the pacing. The pacing was all over the place. They were trying to put so many different storylines in, and we were just jumping back and forth one to the other. We didn't get time to really get to know some of the new characters very well, and I just felt it was 2 movies like shoved into one, essentially, what they were trying to produce. Some of those storylines could have been cut. So now, spoiler time if you want. So mute me now if you don't like spoilers. And the first spoiler is Poe's girlfriend. What was going on with Poe's past, potentially new again girlfriend? I mean, she didn't really add much to the story. To me, it felt just like they were trying to give Poe a girlfriend so that people stopped shipping him with Finn. But I just felt that felt really forced. I didn't get any chemistry between them, and I just thought it was unnecessary. All of the stuff that happened, whenever there was a major plot point of something dire happening, like Chewbacca's been blown up and C-3PO has lost his memory, all these things, they didn't just put back. So we didn't get the emotional impact because we were basically told 2 seconds later that it doesn't matter anyway because Chewie's still alive and C-3PO's memory is on file with R2-D2, so we can get them all back, so it doesn't matter. So they were trying to make us feel things, but then they didn't actually want to deal with the consequences of what they were doing. So then they just undid them, which lost everything. And the biggest thing for me, as you'll know, I am a Reylo fan, and that's one of the things I loved about Last Jedi was that relationship developing between Rey and Ben. And they just killed it in this movie. I mean, we had a kiss, sure, but that just felt like a bit of a token gesture. The entire ending of this movie is really just a rehash of Return of the Jedi. Even some of the dialogue was practically the same. And we had the lightning shooting, and we had, the last minute destruction of the bad guy in pretty much the same manner as the previous time. And you just thought, why? I mean, they've done Return of the Jedi, and it's an awesome movie, but you've got an opportunity here to do something different. So why didn't you do something different? And there was no need to kill Ben. I mean, it would be much more interesting for him as a character and for us as an audience, for him to change sides, to turn to the good, and then have to deal with the impact of that, of going to be with these people who he's been their enemy for all these movies, and having to deal with that. And killing him off was it's just a cowardly move. And it also sends a really bad message, I think. It sends a message that you can only be redeemed if you immediately die afterwards, which they did with Vader and they've done again with Ben. And it really irritated me, because I really hoped that they'd do something brave and different, and all they've done is just gone back to template. So it was disappointing. I mean, I will buy the DVD because I want to have the whole collection, and I will watch it again, and maybe on a second viewing I'll feel a bit happier about certain things now that that initial disappointment's over. But that's why I'm giving it 3.5 stars, because for me it was a big letdown. So we are back. If you've been muting me, the spoilers are over, so you're safe to turn the volume on again. So sticking with films, I also watched 4 movies on streaming, 2 on SBS On Demand here in Australia and 2 on Netflix. So I'll do the SBS On Demand first. And the first one I watched of the 2 was The Legend of Barney Thompson. Now this is based on the first of a series of books that I have read and really loved. It's this awesome black humour. It's about this guy who's a nobody barber, getting on in life. He's on his own. He's only really got his mother. And one day he accidentally commits murder, and it is an accident. However, things escalate from there with his awful attempts at trying to cover it up. In the meantime, there is another serial killer on the loose in Glasgow at the time, and the police start to believe that Barney is that person. So he's on the run from the police. One murder leads to another. He's constantly trying to cover things up. And it's a brilliant story. And I was so excited when they first made this movie, because Robert Carlyle was the guy behind it. He was going to play Barney. Perfect casting. And so I'd been waiting to watch this film for ages, and I finally came up on SBS On Demand and I could watch it. And again, I was a little, like with Star Wars, I was a little disappointed. I didn't hate it, and I did think that Robert Carlyle, absolutely perfect. I mean, as Barney, spot on. Really good casting. Emma Thompson was playing his mother, and I liked her, but I thought one of the reasons this film didn't quite work was that probably because they've got Emma Thompson, they've really enlarged her part. And so it kind of detracted from the drama and action taking place with Barney, because we had to keep spending time with her. So I just thought the pacing didn't quite work, and it lost some of the oomph and appeal it has in the book. And I think that was just to do with the way the characters were balanced in the film interpretation. But it's worth seeing if you like black humour. It is worth taking a look, but I probably would push you towards the books more than the film. Next up, sticking with black humour actually, a Danish movie called Small Town Killers. And again, black humour with murder going on is obviously my theme for January. This is a movie about 2 guys. They're married, but their marriages aren't going that well. And when they get drunk one night, they decide to go on the internet and hire a hitman from Russia to come and solve their problems. But by the time he arrives, they've obviously sobered up and changed their minds. So they're trying to prevent him from actually doing the hit on their wives that they'd hired him for. Meanwhile, the wives have become clued in on what's going on and decide that they need to get some payback of their own. I won't say more than that because I don't want to spoiler it, but obviously there's plenty of laughs, plenty of gags, people being killed left, right and centre. All the while they try to keep their wives and husbands alive. So it's worth a look. I mean, I do love Danish black comedy. I think it's brilliant. It's a very similar sense of humour to UK black comedy. So if you like UK black comedy, definitely check out the Danish stuff too. Next up, I watched A Star Is Born. This is the new version with Lady Gaga. I liked it. I mean, how many versions of A Star Is Born storyline do we need? I was kind of thinking as I watched. I mean, I've seen others. And there was nothing wrong with this one. The performances were fine. The music was fine. But it just never completely gripped me. And I was kind of doing some sewing while I watched. And I was quite happy to be looking down, doing other things, glancing up. And it wasn't a film where I wanted to set everything aside and give it my undivided attention, if you see what I mean. So, it's perfectly okay, but I'm not going to rave about it the way some people were, because I kind of feel that it's one of those things that how many versions do we need? It's been done. Do something different. And finally, last night I watched A Marriage Story. So this one is a film that maybe I wouldn't gravitate towards normally, except for 2 factors. Firstly, the casting. So I am a big fan of Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson. And also it had a lot of Oscar nominations, so I was interested to see why, what it had done to deserve them. Overall, I liked this movie. My husband came in towards the end, and I knew I'd watched it purposefully when he was out for most of it, because I knew how he'd feel about it. And I said, you know, this is a film about these two people getting divorced. And he's like, well, what's the story though? And it's like, well, that's the story. My husband doesn't like films that don't have a very clear beginning, middle and end. And just a story about these two characters and what they're going through during this process is not the thing for him. I thought it was well done. I thought the acting was very good. The pacing, a little slow here and there, but mostly worked well. I did kind of get a bit bemused when we diverged into sort of a Sondheim karaoke session, and we had first Scarlett and then Adam singing Sondheim songs. Perfectly relevant Sondheim songs, actually, because they're from the musical Company, which is very relevant to the story. But in any way, I did quite enjoy the sing-alongs, so that's fine. But I did think it was a strong performance. As I said, pacing could have been improved a little bit, but really, this is a film you watch for those two lead performances. And not much else. And it's definitely worth it for that. So if you're into really emotive acting and you don't mind films where things move slowly and there's not big action points, then this is definitely a movie I recommend checking out. I'm going to have a quick slurp of drink. Excuse me. And now I can move on to the TV. I've actually been watching quite a lot of TV in January, more than usual actually. I did a rewatch of Bungo Stray Dogs first because I bought them on the first two series and the film on DVD because I loved it so much when I watched it the other month. So I've already done a review of that. I won't talk about that too much. I'll move straight on. So all these are on Netflix. First of all, a Japanese anime called A.I.C.O Incarnation. And this was a middle-of-the-road anime for me. The basic premise is that there's a young girl who discovers that she's actually not human as she thought, but her mind's been put into an artificial body. And in the background, there's this stuff going on, so there's this dangerous sludge stuff that's gradually invading everywhere. And it turns out that it was during the process of cloning and creation of this artificial body and things that this stuff was created that caused all the problems. And the only way to solve it is for her to go to the epicenter and get back into her correct body. So that's the premise. And there's a group of people who are trying to get her there and a group who are trying to prevent her, as you might expect. It was okay, it was entertaining enough, but I never really came to care deeply about any of the characters. I mean, it was only a fairly short series, what about 12 episodes? Yes, I'm adding them up. 12 episodes. So for that length, I was happy watching it and finishing it, but I wasn't in love with it. It's not one I'd want to rush to watch again or anything like that. So check it out if you're a huge anime fan, but it's not a top pick that I'd give you. Next up, I watched the new BBC Dracula 3-part series, the Stephen Moffat, Mark Gatiss one. This was just bizarro. I liked it at first, and then I hated it, and then I liked it a bit, and then I hated it again, and then I really wasn't sure. It had some major pacing issues. The first two episodes were fine, but then the final episodes, I felt really, really rushed, because suddenly we were in modern times and we had to cram an entire plot into one episode, whereas we'd spread out all this background stuff over two previously. So that didn't quite work for me with the pacing. I wasn't keen, I can't remember the actor's name, the guy who's playing Dracula. His accent I found really irritating at first. I did kind of get used to it, but when we first meet him, he's doing that sort of Carpathian English accent that you expect from Dracula. But then he goes into this all-out English accent, and it was just bizarro. It didn't work for me. My sister said she liked it, but it just didn't work for me. And I really don't know what to say about this. It was just, there were things I liked, and then there were things I absolutely hated. So I guess in the end, it's a middle-of-the-road watch. As Dracula adaptations go, it's not the worst I've seen, but it's certainly not the best either. So it is only 3 parts, so if you feel inclined, give it a try. But there were just too many things I didn't like, I think, and I definitely wouldn't bother watching it a second time. Next up, Lost in Space Series 2. Again, it's been a really mixed bag for me this month, hasn't it? But I really loved season 1 of Lost in Space, and I was excited to see what they were going to do in season 2. But for me, it just didn't 100% work. And I think part of the problem was the lack of the robot, because the robot really made season 1 for me. I absolutely loved it. I thought the way they portrayed the robot was perfect. And in this season, he really doesn't come in until past the midpoint. And then when he does come in, he's underused, and I think that let it down, because the rest of the story was just like the Robinsons get into trouble, the Robinsons get out of trouble, the Robinsons get into trouble, the Robinsons get out of trouble. You could see the trouble coming a mile off. Even before they started doing something, you knew what was going to happen and that it was all going to go wrong. And I just felt that we've reached the point now where we're over that. And I needed something a little bit more from the story, and it didn't really give it to me. Even casting J.J. Field, who I absolutely adore, he came on screen, I was like, oh, J.J. Field, but then I was so lackluster about the whole thing that even he couldn't quite bring it up to scratch for me. So, you know, I just think season 1 really hit all the points. It was absolutely spot on. And season 2 just felt like we've just seen it and done it all before. And we didn't have some of that fun stuff with the robot that we had in season 1. So for me, it was a bit of a mixed bag. I didn't mind watching it, but I wasn't super excited. Next up, a French paranormal thriller called Mortel. And this is kind of voodoo-based. 2 young teens who wouldn't normally have become friends end up having to work together because of this voodoo god who's stuck on Earth, and they have to make a pact, and they're trying to get him back to where he belongs, while also solving a mystery of one of the boys' missing brothers. I don't want to say too much more than that to spoiler it. This was okay. It's a 6-part series. Pacing was a little slow at times. I felt it would have worked maybe in 5 episodes instead of 6. They could have moved things along a little bit here and there. But it was entertaining. It was a very different angle than most fantasy shows I've been watching lately. And it was good French practice. So for all those points, it is worth watching. If you finished other stuff on Netflix, you're wondering what to watch, it's an okay one. It's not going to take you too long to get through either. And now I'm going to move on to the Korean drama, because in January I've suddenly discovered all these Korean dramas on Netflix, and I've been absolutely adoring them. So I'll tell you which ones I've watched so far, which ones I love best, and they're definitely worth checking out. First up, Is Psychometric. This is a story about a guy who, as a child, was caught in an apartment fire, and since then he's had psychometric powers. So if he touches someone or an object, he gets a sense of their past, things that have happened to them, where they've been, things like that. His adopted brother is a public prosecutor, and what really wants to do is help the police solve murders with his psychometric powers. And at first, it doesn't seem very likely because his powers are a little bit lackluster and the things he sees are really useless. But as time goes on, he develops his skills. A girl comes in who is involved with his past and his adopted brother's past. Plus, there's this serial killer on the loose. So there's lots of different plots that gradually all come together. And I really enjoyed this. It was quirky, there was great humour, it was fun, action-packed, good performances, and this is what made me carry on and watch more Korean dramas, because I thought it was just brilliant and something really different. Next up, I watched Black. Black is my absolute favourite of all the ones I'm going to talk to you about today. It's about a young woman who can see death. If she passes someone and she doesn't wear her sunglasses, which she usually does to try and block seeing things, she can see a black shadow behind them if they're about to die. And if she touches that shadow, she can see how they're going to die. And she gets involved with a policeman called Mugan, and he discovers her powers and wants to be able to use them because he's got a mystery of his own he's looking into. He's a bit of a useless policeman in many ways. However, he's a detective. However, that changes when he becomes possessed by a Shinigami, a Grim Reaper. And from there, the two of them are working together to solve temporary mysteries, but also to deal with this ongoing issue that's connected to Mugan's past and also her past, we discover as the story progresses. Again, it's one I don't want to spoiler, but this is absolutely brilliant. To begin with, there's masses of humour and it's really funny. And that humour continues, but it does tone down a bit as the story gets a bit darker and there's more action taking place. But it was really original, brilliant performances. Everything came together so well. And although I got some of the twists, I didn't get all of them. So quite a lot kept me on my toes and kept me guessing and surprised about what was going on. I loved this so much that I searched around until I found a copy on DVD on eBay, which I had to buy from Malaysia. You couldn't get a copy from Australia. There was no Australian or UK release or anything. You had to buy it from Malaysia. Luckily, it's still got the English subtitles and it plays on my player. But that's how much I loved it, and I'm just doing a rewatch now to make sure that all the discs play and everything. But it's awesome. So definitely, if I recommend one film or TV show for you from this month's ones I've watched, it's going to be Black, which is available on Netflix. Continuing, I then watched Under the Black Moonlight. This was only a 2-part one, and honestly, this one I would skip. It had a fun story premise to do with a guy who can tell that this girl's in danger from her boyfriend, tries to get her to leave him, and it becomes involved with their art class and various things going on, and they end up in a spooky mansion, so there's a bit of a sort of spooky ghost house kind of thing going on too. But it felt really hammy. All the acting was super hammy. It felt really cheap, and it just didn't come together. That the premise was good, but the production values were not. So I don't recommend that one. Next up, I watched another fairly short series called Nightmare High. There were about 12 episodes, but they were only 10 to 20 minutes each, so it's quite a quick watch. And this one's about a school where a substitute teacher arrives, and he begins spotting students that are having problems and offers them the perfect solution to their problems if they're willing to sign a blood contract with him, essentially for their souls. It's kind of a soul-stealing demon kind of setup. It was entertaining. It's not one I'd rush to rewatch 20 million times like Black, but it was good fun, nicely done. The acting was fine. And next up, the final one for this month is Blood, another Korean one, and this one is a vampire show. So contemporary setting, vampires are created through a very rare virus, and our main character, Jisan, his parents were infected with the virus and he was born infected. And he works as a surgeon in a hospital, and he's trying to find out who killed his parents. There's a bit of backstory going on with that, while also trying to keep his vampire nature at bay with the help of his biochemist friend, who keeps him on suppressants and various things so he can function around blood. There's a young female doctor with whom he's at odds at first, until it turns out they have a shared past. And eventually the big bad guy comes forward and they all have to work together to try to defeat him. Again, I'm not going to spoil it too much more than that. But this was really good. I liked it second. It's in second place to Black at the moment. It was really entertaining. It took a few episodes to get going, but once it did, the pacing was good. The acting was excellent. I was a bit upset with the ending. They ended it in a way that left a few questions, and you could kind of answer the questions based on stuff that had been said in the final couple of episodes. But then that caused problems for another part of the narrative. So I wish they'd kind of explained the ending a little bit more. But that aside, I really loved this show. And this is one I could rewatch as well, actually. I mean, Black, definitely, I was that in love with it. I went and bought the DVD. But both Blood and Is Psychometric were ones I enjoyed enough that I think I could still enjoy them watching them another time, giving them a bit of a rewatch. So definitely, I recommend, if you're going to pick some Korean ones to try, Black, Blood, and Is Psychometric are my top picks so far. I have about 16 others lined up on my list on Netflix, Korean ones, that I want to watch. So as I watch some more, I'll give you some more recommendations. But I'm really loving them. You've got to pick and choose, obviously, because there was that one that wasn't quite so good. But certainly most of them so far have been really enjoyable watching. So I'm keen to try out some more during February. I hope you'll join me again at the end of February to see how I feel about any that I've given a try to. So do join me then. If you're into my book reviews, I'm going to be coming back probably in about 20 minutes once I've got everything finalised here and set up there to do my end of the month book wrap up, as long as the internet keeps playing nice with me. I hope you'll come and see me then, and I'll be back again as always during February with more streams for you, all sorts of different stuff. So do join me then. Bye for now, everyone.